Hey, creative souls, writers, word witches, thank you so much for tuning in. I am so happy that you're here. Thank you all so much for your likes, shares, and subscribes. It is helping me slowly but surely grow my channel organically, and I remain optimistic that I will reach my goal to get to 500 subscribers by the end of September. So thanks to everyone who has helped me with this endeavor. And I encourage you to keep sharing, spreading the word. And if anything I say in this video or others resonates, please subscribe if you haven't already. Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about backstory. And I think backstory really is one of the most powerful and I think fun tools that we have as fiction writers. And it does a lot of things. It deepens character. It can enrich present action as it unfolds in a scene or in the story overall. And it also really kind of helps us help readers understand and make sense of our characters' motivations, desires, and behaviors. And really their emotional inner landscape, so their emotional complexities. And this is the thing that I think helps make our characters more human-like on the page. So I think when backstory is done well, it doesn't interrupt the flow of the narrative, but it enhances it. So in this video, I want to talk about 6 key types of backstory and how they show up in fiction and how to use them strategically or how to think about them. And I'll also give you examples. So before we get into that, if you don't know me, I'm Johnny. You can learn more about me on my website, johnnymazzacco.com. You can learn more about me and what I do on my blog, writingthroughthebody.com. And you can find me on my new Substack, like brand spanking new. I haven't even posted anything yet. So I've just imported my email list from another provider that I've had it up to here with. And I'm going to be showing up on Substack with not only things I talk about here, but other really cool and fun and exciting things. So I hope you'll join me over there. And I'm sorry, it's so new, I don't even have a link to share with you. If I went and looked right now, I could, but I don't want to waste our time. And since I'm doing this new improved way of doing my videos without a solid script in front of me that requires a ton of editing, I'm just talking. So if you want to follow me over there, head over to Substack and just Google my name, Johnny Mazzacco, and you will find me. And stay tuned because this week I'm going to start populating some of the sections I've created, and I'm working on making it really fun and informative. And you can also, when you subscribe, get my 10 ways to banish writer's block flip book. And you will be a guinea pig of sorts. So if you want to go over and give that a try, and you for some reason don't get that flipbook or a way to access it, you can email us at hello@johnnymazzacco.com and let us know there's a glitch in the system. And that way we can work it out and make sure we get that to you. Okay? So, and I'll put links to my website and the blog in the description so that you can access those. All right, so let's get to backstory. The first type of backstory that I want to talk about is context. And context backstory, oh, one thing I also want to say is you will see a lot of overlap between some of these. So some of them, they're going to sound similar when I talk about them, but there are differences. And so hopefully that will come through by the time I get to the end of this. Okay, so context backstory does a few things. It provides readers with a look into your characters' past conditions and environments, and it's usually written as descriptive narrative. And so I'll explain what I mean by both of those. All right, so first of all, past conditions and environments. These can be spatial or temporal environments, as I talked about in my video on setting, and I'll link it up here so you can go check that out if you haven't. And these environments can also be emotional environments. So for example, you might have a character with a tragic past, okay? And I'll give you an example in just a moment here. And descriptive narrative looks or sounds like this. So this is a character with a tragic past, and I'm going to read a passage that I just wrote to use as an example in this video. And I might just use it in a story. So yeah, it's already spoken for. So it goes like this. The old rusted out car at the side of the house wasn't just a car. It was a silent symbol. Its sun-bleached blue paint serving as a skin of sorts, a fragile container for the stories that unfolded inside. Julie's family had taken many vacations in this car. She had learned to drive in this car. The laughs and the memories wrapped in its dependable armor of protection. But Julia also remembered that summer day in 1978 when she and her dad were heading back home from one of her swim meets, when he let her drive because she had just gotten her learner's permit. The flash of the red out the corner of her eye, the glint of the sun bouncing off a metal surface, the jacked up pickup that ran a stoplight and plowed into the passenger side, leaving her dad paralyzed for life. The old rusted out blue car was a lesson that lifelong memories are a mix of joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain, triumph and tribulation, and that sometimes it's impossible to untangle the complicated commingling of them all. That our time on this earth is not an experience of dualities, but a woven together chronicle, crafted from a multitude of words and images, sensations and memories that leave each of us with a work of art we call a life. All right, so that is an example of descriptive narrative that gives context, backstory. All right. Next, we have memory and recollection. And so memory and recollection backstory can be presented in a number of ways. And this usually occurs when an event or an interaction with another character or an object in the narrative triggers a memory in the character, usually the protagonist. And they can show up as flashback, exposition and summary, or drip backstory. And I'll break each of these down in just a minute. So an event might be something like a wedding, a funeral, a birth, or a reunion. Another character might say something that reminds your protagonist of something that someone from their past once said. They might use a tone that reminds them of a tone someone in their past might have used. And they might just look like someone from the protagonist's past. And then in terms of objects, this can be really anything. It can be a necklace, or it can be a kind of plant or a flower that had some sort of meaning from the past. It can be a song that triggers a memory or a smell, right? It can be all of those things. So let's break each of these down now. Flashback. Flashbacks are scenes or sequences from an earlier point in the narrative, or even before the present narrative or the main story takes place. And flashbacks tend to interrupt the main story to provide context or give information that is relevant to the present. All right, so it's similar to context, but it's generally written more as a scene that's being played out before the reader's eyes rather than descriptive narrative. Okay, so context backstory is descriptive narrative, like I read in the last passage. Flashback, which is memory, recollection, is depicted as a scene. And I have a scene, flashback from Miranda's garden. I took a piece of it that I want to read to you. It's a tiny bit long, or it feels long to me at least, knowing that you're going to be sitting there listening, but I want to read it to give you an idea. So when we use flashback or recollection, the character goes back into their memory and relives the experience. And then the reader experiences it, as I said, as a full-blown scene. And it might be a dialogue, it might have like setting descriptions and even characterization. Because the idea that The point of this is to inform the reader so they more deeply understand the protagonist. So this flashback from Miranda's garden comes when Miranda, who is now an adult, she's 30 years old, and she visits her childhood home, a farmhouse in the Midwest, from her cabin in Colorado. She's there visiting for the holidays. Um, and this flashback is from the day that her parents tragically died in a car accident. And to set this flashback up, I will say that Miranda is in one of her favorite places. She's out in the cornfield or behind it because she loves her natural setting and she's a little creature of nature and really vibes with it and is very connected to it as a child. And she's out there doing her thing, and her parents are preparing to leave. And they're waiting for her aunt and uncle to return with her older sister so that they can watch the kids while her parents go to town. And so I will read this passage to you now. And her parents have been calling to her. Okay, so here we go with the passage. Her parents call again. Miranda takes one last look at her creation, which is a circle of rocks with an acorn in it. She wants to grow this massive oak tree. Okay, she's 5 years old when this happens. Miranda takes one look at her creation, wishes it well with a bow, and dashes back into the corn, the musky smelling milieu where she has held tea parties and played tag with her friends, begged to sleep here some nights, but her parents have not allowed. For Miranda, it's more than a cornfield. It's another world. It's her world, and she reigns supreme. She bursts out the other side to find her mother and father in the driveway, truck loaded. David straddles her mother's hip, chewing on a biscuit, the wet mush caught in the corners of his plump lips. Please, please let me go with you, Miranda chimes, and runs into the side of her father's leg with a body hug. Not this time, he says. She goes to her mother, tugs at David's dirty bare foot. But why? I always go with Daddy. Why are you going this time? Her mother reaches down to smooth her hair. Remember what we said. But Mama, listen. She grasps her mother's hand and hugs it to her cheek. I don't need a new routine. Routine, says her mother, and yes, you do. We made a deal. Didn't we make a deal? Miranda squints one eye, crinkles her nose, and holds up her index finger in front of her face. One more day. That's all. One more. Please, Mama, please. Sweetness, no, her mother says with finality. She goes back to her father. Daddy, I'll rest in the truck. More sternly, he says, Miranda, not this time. We're running late. A white Buick pulls in and parks next to the truck. Aunt Minna, Uncle Frank, and Elizabeth pile out. Elizabeth has spent the past 2 nights at their aunt and uncle's place in nearby Farmington. About damn time, says Miranda's father under his breath. Aunt Minna exits the car, explanations tumbling. Good God, she says. Truck hit a cow on 116 near Middle Grove, and Elizabeth had to stop twice and pee since we left the house. Had to stop and pee twice since we left the house. Uncle Frank interjects. I gave her a coffee can for the back seat, but she wouldn't go for that. He chuckles, musses Elizabeth's hair, and calls her Miss Priss. Elizabeth frowns and goes to the house. Miranda's mother passes David off to Aunt Minna and runs around to her side of the truck, reciting orders about dinner and bedtime rituals. Miranda rides her father's leg to his already open door and gives her one last plea, her father giving her a look. She lets go slowly to savor the feel of his warm denim leg against her cheek as long as possible, pushes out her bottom lip and looks up at him. He softens, kneels to her level, and takes her face in his hands. Sweet girl, we were supposed to leave an hour ago. We won't get back until past your bedtime. But why can't Mama stay like she always does? Then we could already be there and you wouldn't be late. That's some mighty fine logic, he says, softening even more. But to answer your question, because your mama and I both have to go this time and take care of some business. What business? Grown-up stuff, farm business. Adding with a wink and lowering his voice, I'll bring you back some taffy. You're going to miss the moon, says Miranda. I'll get a good look at it on my way back, he promises. I'll see it shining bright in the sky, and I'll think about you the whole time. But I want to look at it with you, she says. Her father looks over his shoulder at Miranda's mother, then back at Miranda. He whispers, "Tell you what, I'll wake you up when I get back, and we'll look at it together." She brightens, makes several miniature claps with her palms flat together, and grins with an elation that makes her father take her face in his hands again. "You're a special girl," he says, "my sweet, magical girl." He plants a kiss on her cheek and climbs into the truck. Miranda squeezes in one last wave to her mother. Her mother blows a kiss. The truck starts, kicks into gear, and leaves the driveway. Miranda watches until it's no longer in sight, and the brown dust from the gravel road has dissipated. All right, so like I said, a little bit of a long passage, an excerpt from the full flashback, which I may still consider shortening some. But I feel like it's a really potent flashback to tell because that's the day that Miranda's life completely changed, forever. And so I also thought I would give you some examples of novels that you can access and read that use flashback really liberally in the storytelling. One is The Girl on the Train by Patricia Hawkins, and another is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. Okay, so then next we have drip backstory, and drip backstory is delivered more strategically throughout the story to reveal a character's past. And this is done in small, gradual pieces, woven into the narrative rather than delivering large info dumps like flashbacks do. So here's an example from earlier in Miranda's Garden, and this is just a little drip of backstory that I provided before I get to this longer flashback that I just read to you. And so this in the current version is on page 8, so it's very early in the novel. And it says this: Miranda lived with a kind of illusion, which had infiltrated her awareness many years before, starting with the death of her parents when she was 5, from the grief she had never fully processed. And so this is when readers first understand that, oh, okay, she lost her parents when she was very young, but we don't yet go into the details much. But knowing that she experienced that tells us that, okay, she had a pretty serious trauma at a very young age. Novels that you might want to check out that use drip backstory are The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. Big, fat novel. Highly recommend it. If you haven't read Donna Tartt, really can't recommend her highly enough. She is not just an exquisite writer, but her storytelling skills are just amazing. So I recommend checking her out, and especially The Goldfinch for drip backstory. V for Vendetta by one of my favorite weirdos in the world, Alan Moore, and his fellow writer, David Lloyd. And then there's a novel called Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. These all use drip backstory. All right, so now let's look at exposition and summary. And I put these together. Exposition can be longer than summary, but they basically do the same thing. Direct exposition backstory is the direct telling of a character's history by the author. All right, so this could also be classified, depending on how it's delivered, as context backstory. Usually when we see exposition or summary backstory, we can see indirect or direct. So direct, as I said, is the author, or excuse me, the author just telling it as it was. Indirect can occur through actions or dialogue or the setting to reveal a deeper meaning. And so some examples of this are, if you think of The Hobbit by Tolkien, the narrator directly describes the hobbits and their comfy little lifestyle, right? It provides immediate background to their story world. And then another novel that you might want to think about that uses direct exposition to share about backstory is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. If you like magical realism, recommend this one. I just read this one recently after having it on my list for a very long time, and it was very good. It's a thin novel, it's kind of a page turner, and so you can read it very quickly. Another example of both direct and indirect exposition for backstory is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Another fatty, well worth the read, also magical realism. Okay, then we have dialogue backstory. So, dialogue backstory naturally integrates past events and motivations and relationships into conversations. And so I created a short dialogue exchange just to use as an example. I will say it's not the greatest, but I think it will serve to at least show you what I mean by this. And this can be two characters sharing information about themselves, or it can be two characters talking about, or more than two characters, talking about someone else amongst them and sharing information about the person. So again, this is a scene, and this dialogue exchange I wrote that shares some backstory is between two women named Rochelle and Isla, and they're at a party put on by someone named Marcus. Okay, so Rochelle starts the conversation. So how do you know Marcus? Rochelle asked. Oh, we go way back, said Isla. How far back? Said Rochelle. Grade school, smiled Isla. Wow, that is way back, said Rochelle. She lifts her martini glass for a sip, making sure her engagement ring is easy to spot. And we dated in high school, said Isla. Really? Said Rochelle. Funny. He never mentioned you. Oh, I'm not surprised, smiled Isla. Why is that? Rochelle inquired. Let's just say we got into some things. What kind of things? Asked Rochelle. Think vacant houses, a secret club, and a vow to never tell anyone about it. So, what, like Fight Club? Said Rochelle. Sort of, said Isla. Just the two of you? Mostly, smiled Isla, and the occasional third party. All right, so that is hopefully an example of backstory through dialogue that shares a little bit, but also creates enough intrigue that we want to know, oh, what the hell did they do? And also, it layers in some tension between the two women and probably potentially between Rochelle and Marcus, who is her fiance, right? So, some examples of novels that use dialogue to share backstory. The Salt Witch by Martha Wells. And this is a novel by Dave Eggers, excuse me. And it has a long, funky title. And it is this: Your fathers, where are they? And the prophets, do they live forever? So, if you missed the titles that I mentioned in here that you can use as examples, I will put a link to the blog post that I just put up on this subject, and they will be listed in there so you can get them there. And if you want to know more about backstory, my upcoming backstory flip book is almost ready. And if you want to know when it's ready or how to know when it's ready, you can follow me here, subscribe if you don't already. And as I said, check in over on Substack. So that is, I was just checking my notes, and yes, I hit everything. So that is it for backstory, lovely writer. I hope this was helpful to you. As always, I send you mad writing mojo. Happy writing.